Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Medialdea Guevarra says his fate as Solicitor General is now up to President Marcos. That's amid calls for him to resign following his refusal to be the default state lawyer against the Dutertes.
And authorities allege that Harry Roque and former Bamban Mayor Alice Guo have a lot more in common than just pogo connections. They could have taken the same backdoor route to flee the country.
And the head of the MRT3 has been dismissed over an escalator mishap. Only one result of delays and urgent fixes in the train line. That's according to the Transportation Department.
The government's top lawyer believes he did nothing wrong when he refused to defend the Marcos administration over the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Now, Solicitor General Medialdea Guevarra is leaving it up to Malacanang to decide if he needs to go. The big story tonight from Maricel Halili.
Should SolGen Guevarra step down after stepping aside in the case of the Dutertes against the government? Former Senator Laila de Lima believes he should for failing to do his duty as default lawyer of the state. De Lima spent 4 years of close to 7 years in jail over trumped-up drug charges during the time of Guevarra as Justice Secretary.
The primary obligation and duty of the Solicitor General is to defend the government. If he cannot defend the government, not even on the basis of conflict of interest, but on insisting on a personal legal opinion that is not even crucial to defending the public officials involved, it is time for him to go.
Attorney de Lima says Guevarra's move for recusal undermines the position of the Marcos regime in the certiorari and habeas corpus petitions of the Duterte children and their allies. For its part, Malacanang says it's up to Guevarra to determine if he's still up for the job. The OSG recently sent a manifestation to the Supreme Court opting out of the consolidated petition for habeas corpus. Filed by Mayor Baste, Congressman Pulong and Kita Duterte, that's over the alleged illegal arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte on March 11 and his eventual turnover to ICC detention in The Hague, Netherlands.
Siguro po mas maganda po kung mismo si SolGen ang mag-assess sa sarili niya, kung siya pa po ba ay nararapat na tumayo bilang Solicitor General.
But the office of the SolGen is adamant. It says the International Criminal Court has no jurisdiction over Duterte's case and that a Philippine judicial system remains sound. This is not entirely a contradiction to Malacanang's position about the matter.
Never did SolGen mention that he is against the cooperation of the government with the Interpol. So how could it be used against the government?
In his defense, SolGen Guevarra insists there is no conflict of interest on his part. He says our recusal is not personal, it is institutional. He went on to say that the OSG's position stands, as this is the position as well of the Republic. Guevarra is leaving his fate in high government service up to President Marcos. Malacanang is as resolute in its stance that while the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over the Philippines, it did have one right before 2019 when it started the probe on the Duterte drug war, something that former Presidential Chief Legal Counsel Sal Panelo has since contested.
Ito lang naman ang tanong natin. Kung naniniwala kayo walang effect or hindi effective or hindi nag-take effect ang Rome Statute sa atin dahil walang publication, ba't kaya nga kayo nag-withdraw? Di ba dapat hindi na kayo nag-withdraw?
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
We have two lawyers tonight with contrasting positions to weigh in on this development. It also happens that they're both named Jesus. Attorney Jesus Falsis and Attorney Jesus or JV Hidlo, who's also a PDP Laban senatorial candidate. First of all, the recusal, let's go to the recusal of the SolGen. He says it's institutional, but I understand that DOJ Secretary Rebulla and even the spokesperson, Attorney Claire Castro, said it was personal. And the second question is, should he resign out of delicadeza? Let's start with Attorney Jesus Falsis.
Thank you for having me, ladies. So on the first question, it is both, no? We cannot be ignorant and naive to say that politics and the law are separate. So when you exercise a position in government, you carry your own values, you carry your own background. So if in his legal opinion, professional opinion, he thinks the Solicitor General should withdraw from the case, that cannot be divorced from his personal opinion as well, because what is personal to him affects his professional opinion. We have to note, of course, that SolGen Guevarra is a law firm partner of former Executive Secretary E.S. Medialdea. And of course, he was also an appointee of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Hindi natin maalis, mahirap na burahin yung ganong personal background of the Solicitor General, which can affect and influence his professional opinion. Now, of course, as to the second question, which I think we will discuss this more, no? In my opinion, he should resign. There's clear basis sa Supreme Court jurisprudence, sa ating mga decisions ng Supreme Court, that what the Solicitor General did in withdrawing is actually not justified. So the Supreme Court says the Solicitor General cannot refuse to represent the government. This is under Section 35 of the Revised Administrative Code. And in many cases, recently, in 2007 from Chief Justice Puno, Guevarra versus Quirino State College, ang clear doon, sobrang clear, sabi ng Supreme Court, the Solicitor General cannot withdraw or refuse from representing the government except with a just and valid reason. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court, hindi just and valid reason yung difference in legal opinion. And the basis that Menador Guevarra cited was that he has a difference in legal opinion, that the ICC has no jurisdiction. So that is insufficient. That is not a valid reason, according to the Supreme Court, for the Solicitor General to withdraw or refuse his appearance. So with all due respect to the Solicitor General, I think he should resign because he is not exercising his mandate under the law.
Okay, overtime na kayo, ha? Let's move to Attorney JV for your rebuttal. Next parang debate. But you do hold a contrary opinion, right?
Yeah, of course. Before Attorney Menardo Guevarra is to be considered as the Solicitor General of the Philippines, he is first a lawyer who is bound by the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability. Under Section 1 of Canon 2 of a lawyer, it is stated that a lawyer shall not engage in unlawful, dishonest, immoral, or deceitful conduct. Being said, it has been the constant position of the Philippine government that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the issue of happening in the Philippines, considering that the government has already withdrawn. It has been the consistent position of the Philippine government. And if it is so, there is no justification to use as basis any agreement with Interpol, because the root or the basis of the Interpol's request is no longer recognized by the Philippine government. Whatever they do, it is now up to the conscience of the SolGen whether the said act of certain Philippine officials is lawful, is honest, is moral, or not deceitful. If based on the conscience of the SolGen, the act of those government officials do not represent the official position of the Philippine government, that the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over these cases of EJK, then
so
the
is he
decision
right?
of SolGen Guevarra is
Attorney
correct.
JV, if I may interrupt, is he right in leaving his fate up to Malacanang?
It is up, that is his answer. We cannot speculate on what is running now in the minds of SolGen Guevarra, because if he base it on blind loyalty to the officials now sitting in Malacanang, he is foremost a lawyer, bound by legal ethics, as directed by the Supreme Court. When he took his oath of office as a lawyer, he is bound to what is legal, honest, moral, and his action should not be deceitful.
Shall we let Attorney Falsis weigh in, or would you like
Actually,
to?
I wanted to ask Attorney Jess Falsis what your thoughts are on the SolGen saying, you know, the ball is now in Malacanang's court. I serve at the pleasure of the president. Of course, that doesn't stop him from resigning if he do so desires. But what do you think about that move?
Well, first of all, no, I have to distinguish that the Solicitor General is not an ordinary lawyer. The Solicitor General is the lawyer of the government. So, in terms of being a private lawyer, yung panyero ko, ang kinukote niya na may personal and private relationship sa CPRA, ang ating Solicitor General as a lawyer, that does not apply to him anymore because the Supreme Court has said, unlike a practicing private lawyer who can decline employment, it has been ruled by the Supreme Court. These are words I'm reading verbatim, that the Solicitor General cannot refuse to perform his duty kasi Section 35 says the Solicitor General shall represent the government of the Philippines. So, in relation with this, that is the law right now. And so, if that is the law right now and Solicitor General Menardo Guevarra knows this, he has to offer a just and valid reason to decline representing the government, even if he has a different legal opinion than the government right now or the
He's
administration
abdicating
right now.
from his staff.
He should resign. If he doesn't resign, mga ladies, I think he should be fired by the president because there's already incongruence with the principal, the client, who is the president and the government, and the lawyer, which is the Solicitor General. So dapat ma-replace na yung Solicitor General if he doesn't represent or is not willing to represent the government.
All right. Well, Attorney Falsis and Attorney Hinlo, I mean, what are the implications of this manifestation by the SolGen, and how do you think it will affect the case? Will it just boost and validate the arguments of the Duterte side and weaken the case of the respondents, in this case, the administration? What do you think of that? Attorney Hinlo?
Yeah, this will validate the official position of the Philippine government that the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over the case of former President Duterte. And this will also validate the position presented by the family of former President Duterte that certain officials of the government made a mistake, committed those mistakes, and the SolGen, based on his personal conscience, he has to adjudge it whether the action is lawful, honest, moral, or not deceitful. I disagree with the position of Attorney Falsis because any order to the SolGen by officials of the Philippine government which are illegal, the SolGen can say no because his loyalty should be with the Republic and not to a person. Now, it depends now. The SolGen is now giving it to the decision of the President. If the President has lost his trust, Section 5 of Canon 1 states that as a lawyer, the lawyer's duty and discretion in procedure, a lawyer shall not allow the client to dictate or determine the procedure in handling the case. For a long time, we've heard President Marcos claim that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the cases filed against former President Duterte. Yet, they allowed the Interpol to get former President Duterte based on a request from a foreign court that the Philippine government alleges and has formally said has no jurisdiction over former President Duterte. You cannot use as basis the agreement of with the Interpol when the source of the power or request made by the Interpol comes from a court no longer recognized by the Philippine government.
Can we have
In this
Attorney...
instance, SolGen Guevarra
Can we have Attorney
correctly
Falsis
decided.
respond to what you said, Attorney JV?
Thank you for that. Of course, Panyero has his opinion, no? But legally, the Supreme Court has already rebutted him, no? First of all, the Solicitor General's withdrawal or refusal has absolutely no connection with the merits of the case. So even if the SolGen says ICC has no jurisdiction, that's why he wants to withdraw, it doesn't affect whether or not ICC actually has jurisdiction because that is his own opinion and hindi naman niya pinasok yun sa records with the Supreme Court because he just manifested that he disagrees with the opinion of the government right now. But second of all, and this is more important, no, because a lot of BDS lawyers are spouting this lie na walang jurisdiction ng ICC. They have to rebut the Supreme Court first because Cayetano versus Pangilinan, a case decided by the Supreme Court, explicitly states that the ICC has residual jurisdiction. May jurisdiction ng ICC for all of the crimes committed before we withdrew. And ang kaso ni Duterte ngayon sa Dahig ay for cases that were covered by 2011 to 2019 when we were still a signatory and party to the Rome Statute. So it's purely baloney to state that the ICC has no jurisdiction. It has. The Supreme Court itself validated that, and with the concept of residual jurisdiction and RA 9851, there is no basis legally to state that the ICC has no jurisdiction.
However, we understand both sides of the argument, and this continues to be hotly debated, and you know, it's so hard to give the right answer because perhaps, you know, it will always be divided by opinion.
The SC has ruled, the ICC also has
yes.
decided, so
the thing
those are facts.
Yeah, those are facts. So I guess to further explain and simplify this, so obviously I think all agree, right, that all the crimes until March 2019, they are covered, those incidents that happened between them. The arrest, though, happened in 2025 when we are no longer a member. So some people might be thinking, you know, the rules governing the arrest might be, have to consider na wala na tayo sa ICC.
O sige. So let's have them comment on the arrest. Whether it's, but because it was an Interpol, it was an Interpol
thing. But is it arguable?
Okay.
Legally.
Maybe Attorney JV first before Jess.
Legally, the family of President Duterte, former President Duterte, and his lawyers wanted to argue this before the Supreme Court. However, the Philippine government and the officials involved did not give him that benefit, did not give him the chance to face the Supreme Court as a citizen, as a former president, to argue his case. The Philippine government, under the Marcos regime, has decided to surrender its former president to a foreign court, which court the Marcos regime itself has said already is not recognized. Now,
all right, if I may get both of you...
If they were allowed, if former President Duterte was allowed to argue in the Supreme Court and his position was approved by the Supreme Court, he should face trial here in the Philippines.
Okay.
If not,
if I may cut you off, Attorney, because the Department of Justice has already answered, given its reply to the Supreme Court, and in its answer, it mentioned that the Supreme Court has no purview on a political, if I may paraphrase, this is a political decision by the President, and he has primordial authority over foreign affairs. And so this was the position of the DOJ. Have you both seen the reply of the DOJ? All right. Attorney JV, parang sinagot nyo na yun eh, because you're saying the right was denied to the former president, but the DOJ says this is a political matter.
But you must remember, ma'am, that the principal counsel in cases under litigation before the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court is the Solicitor General. Now, here comes the Solicitor General disagreeing with that. That's why he recused himself. His conscience probably could not agree with it. That's why we have the very question now addressed to us. Because before he becomes a Solicitor General, before he is recognized as such, he is a lawyer who took his oath of office before the Supreme Court, and that is what his conscience tells him. Now, whether he should stay as SolGen or not, he is, as what the news has stated, he is leaving it to President BBM.
Okay, Jess? May you comment also on
the conscience of SolGen Guevarra is entirely irrelevant. If lawyer, he should know the Supreme Court's jurisprudence mandating the SolGen to defend the government, whatever his personal opinion is, except when he has a just and valid reason. And again, a difference in legal opinion in numerous, countless Supreme Court cases has been invalidated by the Supreme Court. Difference in legal opinion is not a proper basis for withdrawal.
Okay.
But going back to the question of arrest, ladies,
yes. Jess, have you
Yeah.
seen the answer of the DOJ on behalf of the government? Because nga,
Yes.
ayaw na ni SolGen. Oh, meron doon na the court, I mean, being the executive, it has the power to act.
Yes, yes. So that's what I was going to say, no? Ang legal basis kasi na sinasabi dyan ng DOJ is an interplay or interconnection of different legal bases. The foremost basis is the doctrine that the chief executive or president is the chief architect of foreign policy. As chief architect of foreign policy, that is an essential, quintessential political matter or power that is left to the president, and generally the Supreme Court does not meddle because he is the one that gets to know the foreign relations, the intelligence that is used as basis to decide questions on matters of foreign policy. So in relation with the case of former President Rodrigo Duterte, the surrender and cooperation with an international court is part and parcel quintessentially of the President or Chief Executive's power as Chief Architect of foreign policy. But may I add, so aside sa sinabi ng DOJ na yan, nasabi din ng DOJ po noon na meron tayong sariling batas, meron tayong domestic law or Republic Act legally giving the president a legal basis to surrender the president to the ICC. And this has not been talked much about, no, but in the legal circles sa mga academics, kalat na ito. But for the general public, I guess they don't know this. In RA 9851, Republic Act 9851, which is the law defining and penalizing crimes against humanity, we have our own domestic law. We're not just relying on the Rome Statute here. We're not talking of treaties. We are talking of a law passed by the Senate, forwarded and advocated by Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Itong law na to, celebrated by Attorney Harry Roque, nung human rights lawyer pa siya noon. Dito sa batas, R9851, it says here that the president or the relevant authorities have the discretion or power to surrender a person if in the interest of justice it deems that it does not need to investigate or prosecute the person on its own. Meaning, yung Pilipinas, ayaw na niyang i-investigate or i-prosecute yung tao, meron ng pending investigation or prosecution in another court, which is an international court, and the Philippine government may surrender or extradite. But this is not extradition. That is the fake news by the DDS lawyers, no? This is not a case of extradition, it's a case of surrender, which is a totally new concept. Kaya kailangan yung mga DDS lawyers mag-aral. They have to keep up with the mandatory continuing learning education kasi baka hindi nila alam
pagsalitain na natin si Attorney JV. Okay, pinag-aaral daw kayo, sir.
With due respect to my compañero, Attorney Francis, whatever he says right now, the principal counsel of the Republic of the Philippines, in the person of the Solicitor General, Attorney Minardo Guevarra, does not approve his opinion. Period.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Would you add?
Tinuldukan na ni Attorney JV.
Okay na. Attorney Jesus Falsis and Attorney Jesus JV Hinlo, maraming salamat sa inyong oras. I hope our audience was elucidated? What do you think?
I think kasi yun talaga yung argument and there's nothing that we can do because it's the first time this has happened, right? So obviously debates are going to, and biases are going to be there. So,
it's good to see both sides though. You have Attorney JV and Attorney Jess.
To be fair, all sides all the time tayo dito.
Yeah.
So like everybody else, we continue to wait, know what's going to happen. Either Malacanang will move or the SolGen will move. But in the meantime, ito muna tayo. The Bureau of Immigration is convinced that former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque used the quote-unquote backdoor to flee the country, just like what Pogo personality and former Banban Mayor Alice Guo did. During the Senate hearing, or the hearing of the Senate Subcommittee on Justice and Human Rights, the BI confirmed that Roque was spotted in Tawi-Tawi on September 2 of 2024. That's just 2 days before he arrived in the United Arab Emirates on September 4. This is also believed to be the same exit route taken by former Banban Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo when she fled the country in August 2024. That's, of course, to evade arrest over her alleged ties to illegal Pogo operations. However, the BI insists that none of their personnel were involved in Alice's escape.
Mr. Roque has no recorded departure in the BI's records. He likely took the same route as Alice Guo in leaving the country by using a backdoor exit in Tawi-Tawi.
The escape of Guo could have been facilitated by a widely dispersed syndicate operating both domestically and abroad. These operations possibly involved a combination of bribery, corruption, forged documents, and covert networks.
So many people wish to hear that the Pogos paid an immigration officer in one of the air or seaports so that these bad people can escape our shores. But there is simply no proof or evidence to that effect.
For his part, Integrated Bar of the Philippines former president Domingo Cayosa said there is a legal way for the government to bring Roque back to the Philippines.
The government has already canceled or revoked his passport. Kasi pag ganon, pag masabihan yung mga ibang bansa na yung passport mo, revoke na ng gobyerno, you become an undocumented alien sa kanila. And normally, under their immigration laws, unwanted alien ka doon. So, pauuwing ka sa pinanggalingan mo.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up next, the Solicitor General out, the Justice Department in. The DOJ will be defending the Marcos administration in the Supreme Court petitions questioning Duterte's arrest and detention. We have the details of that next. Keep it here on One News. What do you mean?
You're watching The Big Story here on One News.
The Department of Justice will represent government officials named in the former President Rodrigo Duterte's habeas corpus petition. In its response, the DOJ argued that the petition is moot as Duterte is already in the custody of the International Criminal Court. It also cited court rules stating that habeas corpus applies only within the Philippines and maintained that Duterte's arrest was legal under international humanitarian law. Justice Secretary Boying Remulla said bringing Duterte back would be difficult since the ICC now has full jurisdiction over him.
It's a done deal. It's there. Ando na siya. Tsaka sabi niya na mahaharapin niya yung charges. I think that he has repeated that to all of us. Lahat tayong Pilipino narinig natin na sinabi sa atin ni dating Pangulong Duterte na haharapin niya ang kahit na anong paratang sa kanya kahit sa ICC.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has ordered the Duterte siblings to respond to the DOJ's position on their petition. SC spokesperson Attorney Camille Ting clarified that this is part of due process and does not mean the petition is granted or denied.
There are many scenarios that can occur. When the court asks the party to comment or to respond, it does not mean that it either granted or denied the petition or the prayer. We'll just have to wait for the court's action. There are many other, scenarios that could happen, depending on the pleading and what they allege.
Joining us now is Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro, who weighed in on the Office of the Solicitor General's recusal from Duterte's habeas corpus petition. Attorney Claire, thank you for joining us. First question, ano po ba
Good evening,
ang
lady.
hindi hintay ni Presidente? There are already calls for him to just fire the Solicitor General.
Well, as I have said before, during the press briefing, there's no discussion about telling to the SolGen to resign. There's no indication that the President is not satisfied as of the moment, as of this time, with the performance of the Solicitor General. But maybe the Solicitor General can assess himself if he should still stay as Solicitor General.
But he already said, attorney, na he will leave it up to Malacanang. So he is really at the President's mercy or disposal.
Yes, but as I've said, there's no discussion on that. We have not talked about that. And we cannot say as of the moment that he's not satisfied with the performance of the Solicitor General.
So basically, Yusek, it could still happen, right? Just perhaps not today, not tonight.
Yes, maybe it could happen, but not tonight, not tomorrow.
But isn't this a slap on the executive? You know, your chief lawyer refuses to defend you.
I don't think that it will be a considered slap in the face of the government, because if you can read the manifestation of the Solicitor General, he is just insisting that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the Philippines. And it is the same pronouncement, same declaration of our President.
So
But
that's
there's
why,
nothing... Yeah,
tama
but
po,
there's-
hindi naman siya contradictory. So why is it difficult? Parang
That's right.
mahirap maintindihan.
Yeah, and there is nothing in the said manifestation that he is contradicting to the cooperation made by the government with the Interpol.
So then
So
why?
we do not know if there is some personal reason for him to recuse himself from effectively representing the government.
Because of the personal connections he has with the former executive secretary?
Maybe we can say that.
Yusek, Claire, I was also wondering, no, of course, we just got the notice from the OSG and they just submitted it to the Supreme Court yesterday. That was Monday. But also the DOJ seemed prepared in the person of Yusek Nicolas T. He was the one who stepped in for the SolGen. So, were you aware, was the palace aware no, kung paano kumbaga, nagpasahan ng trabaho? Or like, okay, obviously they should have talked, right, before. They would have talked.
Yes, even before, he already told the president that he would be doing this manifestation to recuse himself from representing the government. But we did not expect that it will give a somewhat big deal to the public.
Okay, so hindi kayo nabulaga? You already knew that lalabas ito.
Yes, he already manifested that to the
Quite
president.
a revelation.
Tayo lang pala yung nabulaga. Kami lang yun.
Pero to follow up, Yusek, we had Attorney Jess Falsis earlier who said that there is a Supreme Court ruling that says that it is really the duty of the Solicitor General to defend the government's position. There have been previous rulings.
Yes, supposed to be, because that's the mandate of the Solicitor General.
Okay.
To represent the government, to represent the interests and causes of the government. But with that kind of belief now of the Solicitor General, I think it is better for him really to recuse himself, because it might even damage the causes of the government if he has this personal reason.
But then, you know, you have the Duterte camp rejoicing and seeing this as a win, in a way.
It is, I think they are very good in twisting the facts. As a matter of fact, when I'm reading again and again, over and over, the statements made by the Solicitor General, there's nothing indicating therein that cooperating with the Interpol is wrong. He is just insisting that ICC has no jurisdiction over the country, over the Philippines. So why they have to tweet it as if the Solicitor General is not agreeing or not amenable to the actions made by the government in cooperating with the Interpol.
But in addition, his statement says his recusation is institutional and not personal. You are the one saying it's personal. Also, Justice Secretary Remulla said it's personal, but he says it's institutional. What does that mean?
Oh, definitely he will say that. He will say that. Because if the only thing or the only issue that he raised in his manifestation is about jurisdiction, it's the same manifestation. It's the same pronouncement of the president. There's no contradicting ideas or concept about the jurisdiction of ICC over the Philippines. So why did he have to recuse himself to represent the government?
Well, Yusek Claire, you also have the Justice Department saying that bringing former President Duterte back to the Philippines would be difficult. Does that mean the government is ruling out any possible efforts to bring back Mr. Duterte through, let's say, diplomatic relations, Yusek?
We do not have any more hand. We do not have any more responsibility on that because the former president is already in the custody, full custody of the ICC.
Pero Yusek, kanina tinanong din po kayo, no, if the president would change his mind about rejoining the ICC. At sinabi nyo, Yusek, is as of the moment, we will try to discuss that. So does that mean posible po, Yusek, na bumalik tayo sa ICC?
There's nothing possible. There's nothing impossible in this world. So maybe if he can see the benefits of rejoining the ICC, he might think otherwise.
So just to
To
confirm,
rejoin again.
okay. Just to confirm, no, Yusek, syempre lahat naman nasa realm of possibility, but for the moment, there are no talks of doing that. There's no like concrete pitch or plan to do that, to return to the ICC.
There's none. There's none as of the moment. There's none.
Perhaps it can emanate from the Senate because in the end, it's the Senate that has to ratify, right, such a return.
Yes, maybe good people, experts, law experts can give their suggestions on the reason why the country should rejoin the ICC.
Still connected to the action of SolGen Guevarra to recuse himself, it appears that in the propaganda war, the government is kind of losing. In the social media chats and postings, dehado po ang gobyerno.
As of the moment, I cannot agree on that, but maybe because we do not have any troll army. We are just stating the facts, we just stating the truth based on the evidence, and we do not have social media influencers that we hired to talk about fake news.
Going back, Yusek, to Shawn's question earlier, that the timeline of how early did SolGen express his misgivings about representing the government in this case? How early? Kasi alam nyo na bala.
I was told maybe, what date is today? Maybe 4 days ago.
Yeah, kasi parang late last weekend, nag-utos yung SC, no, na you have to reply, di ba, within 24 hours, but it was the weekend, so I was thinking that's probably going to be on Monday. So would it be around that time, Yusek?
Maybe
More or less.
last Friday.
Yeah, around that
maybe
time.
last Friday.
Okay.
Considering time is of the essence also, and yun na nga, you didn't think it would be a big deal to the public. Why? Isn't it a big deal?
Everybody's talking about that. Everybody's
Ayun na nga
giving
po.
some intrigue on that.
Alam nyo na that early na you didn't see that, wow, this is gonna be an issue, a problem because of the implications.
Well, if we will read again these statements, I do not think of any negative implication on this because, again, the statements made by the Solicitor General is the same thing is stated by the President. ICC has no jurisdiction of the Philippines. So we just do not know why he could not effectively represent the government.
Kaya
So
nga
maybe there are some other reasons for saying so.
Okay, and I know you were asked this at your press conference, which I caught earlier today, Yusek Claire, but let me just ask it again. There's, of course, talk about the plans to freeze the assets of the Duterte. You said this would have to be referred to the AMLAC. You've had a few hours to like maybe reprocess that. So would there be like any cooperation from the AMLAC, which is, I think, also attached under the executive?
Again, as stated by the SOJ, the executive powers is vested in the President. So if whatever will do or give justice, we will abide by that.
But Yusek, can you clarify, is there any investigation right now doon po sa assets nga ni Mr. Duterte that would warrant such a request from the ICC to freeze his assets?
No, there's none. There's none.
Okay.
Now let's go to the request for asylum filed by the former spokesperson Harry Roque. Will the Philippine government be presenting a position?
Again, we have not talked about Harry Roque. His name was not even mentioned. But with regard to the asylum, I think Attorney Harry Roque should prove. No, I think he has not yet filed his petition. But if he files his petition, he has to prove that there is a well-founded fear of political persecution. Otherwise, it will be denied and he has to go back to the Philippines.
But will the government take a position in case? I know it's speculative, but he has announced time and time again that that is what he will do. And so will you protest this? Will you ask for an extradition for him to be extradited back to the Philippines?
I cannot categorically say yes because I have not discussed this with the President and with the concerned agencies. Maybe if time will come, if he files already his petition, then we will try to contemplate in whatever action that the government will do.
But you said there's a suggestion from the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, the IBP, na pwede daw i-cancel or i-revoke ang passport ni Attorney Harry Roque. Is that a possibility right now, Yusek?
As of the moment, I think Harry Roque is not yet a fugitive because there is no yet warrant of arrest issued by the court. Only it's the order of arrest. Order of arrest issued by the House of Representatives. So I think there is no reason yet for the cancellation of the passport, considering that I believe the passport has not been done through fraudulent acts, like what Alice Goo allegedly did. So as of the moment, and unless there will be a warrant of arrest issued by the court already.
Okay, so that's pretty much the same thing that Attorney Harry Roque himself said, na hindi pa nga daw siya pugante.
All right, Yusek Claire Castro, thank you so much for joining us.
Right, time to pause for another very quick break. But right after that, an escalator malfunction costs the MRT3 manager his post. That and more stories next. Keep it here.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us here on The Big Story. A developing story over at The Hague, former Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea has been seen on a stretcher being loaded into an ambulance Tuesday morning. According to the embassy, Medialdea was scheduled to visit former President Duterte, but while at the reception counter at 8:35 a.m., the time at The Hague, he fell ill. An embassy official accompanying the former ES immediately called for medical assistance. Medialdea is now receiving treatment at a local a local Hague hospital. A close relative is with him at the hospital. No word yet on his diagnosis.
Meanwhile, a viral policeman is facing charges over social media posts regarding the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Patrolman Francis Steve Fontillas, who is also a vlogger, is now facing inciting to sedition charges after viral posts about the alleged wrongful arrest of the former president. The Philippine National Police said police officers must remain apolitical and impartial, which Fontillas has violated. The PNP also said that Fontillas underwent psychiatric treatment in 2023 and will undergo another neuropsychiatric test to assess if he is mentally fit for service. Fontillas, for his part, says he stands by his statements and vows to defend it in court.
Lahat ng mga sinabi ko, sir, papanindigan ko yan, sir, kahit saan korte pa kami mag-usap.
Kaya alam po natin na yung basic rights namin, including po yung aming pahayag, whether pro or against, nire-restrict po natin yan.
Kahit sino naman po sigurong Pangulo, mabibigla po sa tinuran ng sinasabing opisyal, uniform personnel. Alam po natin na pagka uniform personnel, dapat po impartial at non-partisan. So doon pa lamang po ay may violation na po siya.
And in other news, MRT3 General Manager Oscar Bongon has been relieved from his post following the escalator malfunction over at the Taft Avenue station. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon confirmed a replacement for General Manager, but he did not disclose the name as they still await the final decision and papers from Malacanang. On March 8, 10 passengers were injured after the escalator at Taft Station collapsed. It took 4 days before it was repaired, which Dizon criticized as a slow response, prompting changes in MRT3 management.
Unacceptable po yung maghihintay pa tayo ng ilang araw para po ipagawa ang isang simpleng bagay tulad ng escalator. Itong klase pong pag-iisip o attitude na pwede tayong maghintay at pwede nating patagalin ang pagpapagawa ng mga bagay na nagsisilbi para sa ating mga kababayan, siguro dapat magbago na.
Well, that was really scary, that malfunction of the
escalator.
escalator.
Video was terrible. And that's also part of my...
One of your fears when you ride an escalator, right, is when...
Who usually rides it? PWDs, parents with small children, elder citizens.
Senior citizens. Oh, I sympathize. That's why it could happen. Anyway, but I'm wondering, why didn't he fire him when, not fire. Di ba he was given a free hand to reorganize?
To do a revamp in the,
kasi parang di ba may...
Diba?
He said, he was saying nga parang a lot of people are now commenting again, no, yung operation kasi is with the government but the maintenance is with someone else. So may parang, we were talking about privatization with him and these things. So we'll see. Pero yung naalala ko sinabi ni Vince was, kung hindi pa siya tumawag doon Tuesday, kung ayos na raw ba yung escalator, baka hindi pa raw inayos. And it only took 8 hours to 9 hours to fix it.
I do hope they paid for the hospital expenses of all those people.
They promised to, on the record.
Okay, great.
Okay?
No, not great, but dapat lang.
Dapat lang. They deserve it. And okay, that's it. That's it for the big story tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Good night.